It's a flow chart. You know, it's the programming of the radio station, the sound of the radio station, which you're constantly tweaking, by the way. There are a lot of factors go into determining why that song played at 5 minutes after 10.
The hot clock was so effective that Les Garland took it with him when he went to television as the first program director of MTV.
We did the very same thing at MTV. The rotations were exactly the way we set them up in radio. MTV was CKLW. It just had different letters.
Welcome back to Musicom Academy, everybody. I have worked for a lot of PDs, and that guy you just saw, he was one of the best. Les Garland. I think I worked for Les. I was a jock. He was the PD at CKLW for 2 or 3 years. He really knew his stuff, quite obviously, but also he was a really good guy to work for. He was fun to be around, and he was just a breeze to work for, even though, which is going to be important for you when you become a boss, even though we knew that what he wanted, we needed to give it to him. But, you know, he did it in a really fair, nice, kind, happy way, which was cool. Actually, he had a kind of a weird saying. If he watches this, he'll probably be killing me. I think he had a hard time remembering people's names because, like, every time he would see me or one of the other jocks or anybody in the building, this is what it would be. Hey, crazy man, what's going on? Hey, crazy lady, what's going on? Hey, crazy man, what's going on? Everything was, hey, crazy, whatever. It was fun. It was neat. It was kind of nice to look back and remember that time. One of the other things, as we get into this lesson, we're going to go into the music and where the songs were played, how they were played, you know, the choices that the jocks on the air were doing, and that's the exact same choices that you need to build into the computer systems when you're a PD. So this is all relative, sort of like the Karate Kid. If you remember when Mr. Miyagi is talking to him and they're out with the car and he's going to be waxing the car, and he says to the kid,
wax on, wax off.
Yeah, this is the radio version of that. Everything we're doing down the road will totally make sense to you when you hit the computer systems. And I'll even explain it before then, but it's going to give you a background that most people will not get in this day and age. And this was a huge revelation to me. It actually dawned on me last night, and I had to recut this entire front portion of this video all over again, which is making it a lot longer, but I think it's incredibly important. If you're a jock on the air right now, and you want to be a program director, I never realized it until just last night that you are at a huge, huge disadvantage because of computer systems than the people who were jocks before the computer systems, when music scheduling ever came into being. Now, don't get me wrong. I'm not saying, the past was better. I mean, it was for this, what I'll explain to you. But as far as today, I would much rather program, if I was doing music on for a radio station, I would much rather be on Music Master and make that baby sing than I would to do it manually like I'm showing you in the beginning of this course. The problem with that is, and I'm going to ask you a few questions, and if you answer them honestly, I think you'll know exactly what I'm talking about almost immediately. The problem with that was that when you're on the air now, you don't get a chance to actually know what's going on. You walk into the control room, the music is there either on a printed sheet or it's on the screen and it's just coming up as the automation. The system is just going one item to the next item to the next item. You don't really know why they're there. Like I'll give you for instance, right now, if you're a jock on the air and let's say I'll even go so far as to say you've been doing it for 10 years. Which would be, wow, you're a pretty good candidate to be a PD. Except that, you're going to be handicapped when you go into the job, and I'll show you why. At your station currently, do you have any idea how many categories there are of music? Are there 4 categories? Are there 10? Are there 5? Do you know? So let's say you do know, and we'll say there's 5. Okay, well, how are the 5 carved up? Like, what's in those categories? Are they cut apart because of years? So let's say one category is 2020 to 2010. The next category is 2009 to 2000. Maybe the next one is, 1999 to 1994. and one category is recurrence, and one category is, say, super power gold, high testing stuff. Do you know that? Okay, so let's assume you even know that. Do you know actually how many songs are in those categories and how many times they actually play in a typical hour when you're on the air? I'd bet big money that you don't know that, and there's no way to tell when you're looking at the computer system. You're just going to see a song number come up, the title and the artist, the intro time and the total time, and you're not going to see anything else. So, in that category of, say, 2020 to 2010, do you know if there's 100 songs in that category and they're playing once an hour? Or are there 200 songs in that category and they're playing twice an hour? Are there 100 songs and they're playing twice an hour, which makes them speed up twice as fast as they come around? For the categories, do you know what the minimum amount of time is before a song is allowed to repeat? Is it 1 day, 2 days, 3 days, 5 days, 10 days? If you are on a classic rock station, and there probably are some categories that aren't allowed to repeat for 7, 8, 9 days or longer. Do you know any of those things? If you don't, you are on a massive disadvantage to being a PD when you now are in control of the controls, because you have no frame of reference of that. You don't know what they cause. In the old days, and again, I'm not saying the old days were better for radio and programming. I'm just saying for learning programming, man, they had no equal. I'm assured of that after really thinking this through, because it's actually scary now that you have no way of learning because of the computer systems. It really is. But in the old days, this is what would end up happening. Instead of you as a jock walking into the control room and having the music come up on the screen, and the PD has done all the hard decisions. He's maybe made the entire system, or he's gone to the music director, and the two of them have put together the system. All the thinking, all the whys, everything of why everything is where it is, they've done that, and then you just execute what you see. In the old days, there was no way to do that. I mean, it would be like chaos on the air. If you just here's the jocks, go at it. So what the PD would have to do is sit down with each jock and go through, which I'm going to do for you, in this lesson. I'm not going to do it exhaustively, but I'll give you an overview of it for sure. But they would have to sit down with the jock, that's going to be on the air, every single jock, and go through piece by piece. This is category A. This is going to have 10 years in it, or 5 years in it. I'll just keep the same analogy going. It's going to have 10 years in it. They're carved up in these 10 years because we're going to lean on this category pretty heavily because we're more of a current radio station. We're going to hit them twice an hour, so there's 100 songs. So basically every 50 hours they're going to start to repeat. Got that? Okay, yeah, got it. Okay, so you're not supposed to hit this category. We're going to start, keeping track of when the songs were played, and you're not going to go any faster than around 40 hours before you can hit something again. You're going to have to wait at least that long. Okay, understand. Now, this category, the second category, these are whatever they are, and here's the reason why, and so and so and so forth, and you're not to play these any faster than maybe 2 days. And this category, no more than 3 days. And there'll be ways of keeping track of that in the old way. Now the computer does it. But I'll show you the way it was done in the old way so you can remember it when you get into doing the computers. It's the exact same stuff. It's just one is tech and one is high tech, low tech. It's exact same information. The concept is absolutely identical. But in the old days, you were forced to learn the concept. You had to learn it in order to do the show. Now you don't need to learn it at all, and no one teaches you. They just don't, because for no other reason, the PDs don't have any time to do that. That's what a lot of this lesson is going to about, and I want you to kind of think about it in those terms. In the old days, there was a PD who set the guidance for the entire radio station. But then if there were 8 jocks, there were 8 other PDs, just of a lesser value, and they had no titles. The main person, the main PD, set everything up, and then when you're doing a show, you are the PD for that particular show, and you're going through everything that the PD told you and explained. It's as if the person is like sitting right here on your shoulder going, no, don't do that. I told you 2 hours. I told you 2 hours. You played it too fast. Okay. How about this song? Nope, nope. You don't have the urban, the R&B ratio right. Well, how about this? No, no, the tempo isn't right. Everything that they set up, it's in your head. I just never realized that until right now, that because of computers, you have no way of learning that, which is probably fantastic because I'm doing this course and I'm actually going to tell you. I'm going to go through all of that stuff. So let's get into the music now. And I'm going to tell you right up front, because this front part is running way longer than I wanted it to be. I'm going to explain something at the end of this that you're going to maybe think a little odd, and that is why back in 1970 did the entire gold section only go back to 1956. It was only from 1970 to 1956. It's only like 14 years. How come? Radio stations go back way farther now than they did then. I'll explain that why at the end. So first we're going to see gold and how the golds were turned. And remember, all of this is exactly pertinent to running the computer systems today. First we're going to do the gold, and then I'm going to explain a little bit about the gold backwards, of what you saw, and then we're going to go into the currents and how they were rotated, how they were picked, and what was going on while they were happening, and you'll get some insight into how that thinking went.
The way the gold was played, and you had to do this manually in your head as you were choosing music. If you look at that first red slot on the right-hand side at around 15, 18 mark on a typical hourly clock, the first one was something out of A. The second one was something out of A. Then the third gold would have been chosen out of the B section. And then the fourth one, in this particular instance, would have been back at the A. So 2 more of the A's and then 1 more of the C's. And then 2 more of the A's and 1 of the B's. And that's the way it went, hour after hour after hour. And you had to keep track of it. 2 A's, 1 B. 2 A's, 1 C. 2 A's, 1 B. 2 A's, 1 C. The interesting part about that, if you, on your own, want to take the time and look at the categories of B and C, a bunch of things are happening. One, the brunt of the music is being played in the most recent 5 years because it was a current top 40 radio station, and that's what you heard. That was where the gold was. Not that different than today, really. Pretty similar. The B section and the C section, they would play every third or every sixth song, but they would continually keep moving through those slots. They wouldn't, like something from 1961 to 1956, as an example, wouldn't play, around the 18 slot, that first red slot. It would play there once, but the next time it played, it would probably be at the next red slot. And then when you'd come all the way around again, it would be at the one after that. And that was because, and this is important when we get into making current music and just music in general, there's a even number of slots, but 2 1 2 1 2 1 2 1, there's an odd number of choices. So you're putting 3, 2 and 1, and then 2 and 1. You're putting 3s into 4s, and they don't match evenly. It's going to keep moving and rotating where that third one lands. That's really important, and that's the math of programming, and I guess part of the science to it too, I suppose. The musical clocks of afternoon drive, nights, and mornings looked roughly like this. This, though, if we look at this one, midday worked entirely different. It was a totally different way, and again, you had to keep track of this. And this is where it really started to get hard and really starts to get into, you are really programming a radio station here, and you are really nailing things down. The really difficult part was the jock on the air was doing this manually in their head and keeping track of it. But this midday gold rotation had a rhythm of its own, and it would bleed over into the next hour. And then the next hour after that. So let me go through it, so I'll give you an idea. The way it was you would keep track of the A, B, C, just the way I described it. So 2 A's, 1 B, 2 A's, 1 C, 2 A's, 1 B, 2 A's, 1 C. So that was going on in your head, and you're choosing music that way, what you're going to play. Then it became, where are you going to play it? As you look at the clock, the stop sets are in the same place, the IDs are in the same place, the jingles, logos, promos, everything is identical, but the music is now dramatically different than it was. There's way more gold here. That was midday between 9 a.m. and 3 p.m. So starting at the top, like in this instance, the first song would have been a gold song, and then there would be a current, and then there would be another gold song. But then there would be two current songs, and then a gold song. And then one current, one gold, two currents, one gold, one current, one gold, two currents, one gold. So you can sort of see the rotation and the repetition. So basically it was gold in one, gold in two currents. Gold in one, gold in two, gold in one, gold in two, gold. And then if you went to the next hour, you could see where the next hour would not look like the hour before it, because the extra current or the extra gold would start to push the whole clock. It would start to turn it by one or two slots, depending on how many you were playing. So roughly the same amount of gold in sheer numbers would be playing hour after hour, but they would keep moving and rotating throughout each hour. You can do that with a computer, but it's pretty hard to do. It's really time intensive because you have to make a clock for every single hour and keep track of it. With the manual way of this was, the jocks just handled it. When you're in there, you're going, okay, where am I now? What am I playing, a gold or current? What slot am I in? You know, what rhythm is that thing going? And let me move to the rhythm of ABC, that kind of thing. See what I mean for the basics? They really locked things down, thought it through, and came up with amazing amount of things, considering this is 60 years ago that they're thinking this stuff up.
And about that 1956 thing, it's kind of an easy answer, although it leads to another set of knowledge that you need to know. In 1970, as far back as you could go was only 1956, even though obviously there's more years than that, because prior to 1956, when Elvis hit and rock and roll became a thing, there were artists like, Doris Day and Patti Page and Rosemary Clooney and Mel Torme and Sinatra, Tony Bennett, that kind of stuff, doing those kind of songs. You could never play that next to, The Who or the Rolling Stones. I mean, that would sound insane. So the cutoff had to be 1956. There was no way to go back farther than that. Now, clearly you can go back, you could go back to 1956 if you wanted to, for some particular reason, if you had a gold station. The other thing was, in addition to being cut up by years, which made it somewhat easy, the years were actually cut up not for any particular pattern of, 10 years, 10 years, 10 years. They were also cut up by sound, because there were sound changes of musical eras. I'll give you some examples, like Sgt. Pepper hit in around 1967, and the British invasion was running full tilt at that time, and there was a lot of rock bands, The Who, the Rolling Stones, the Kinks. There was a ton of rock stuff really hitting then, and it had a different feel than stuff that was, 1963, which a lot of that was Phil Spector stuff, Crystals and the Ronettes and stuff of that nature. And if you jump back in front of that, the eras before that, you had a lot of the teen idols. I can't think of the Bobby Rydell, Tommy Sands, Annette Funicello, in that sound, along with, peppered in with Elvis and Bill Haley and the Comets and Chubby Checker. So there was three distinct sounds there. And those three categories that I was explaining to you, the 1970 to 66, the 65 to 62, and the 61 to 56, those categories were reflecting the sound eras also. You might want to make the cutoff where the music changed, like disco. Disco came in, disco went out. When disco went out, things changed, and then it was like an alternative phase, and then hip-hop was kicking in stronger, and and that type of stuff. You want to keep that in your mind as you're cutting up your gold book and making the sections of how to play different types of music, and how you want to put them on the clock. I know, pretty detailed, but that's the way it is when you're the PD of your own show. You got to know this stuff. Going into the currents, let me just say this. I think I mentioned it in the recorded thing I've already recorded, because this section, what you're about to see, I've recorded this days ago, and then I had to throw it all out and change it all for the revelation in the beginning of this lesson. The current music was under glass, and it looked like this, except there was a glass sheet over it, and you would write on the glass with a crayon, essentially. It looked like a pencil, but inside it was black wax stuff. And you would write on the glass when you played a song. So if you played the number 8 song at 11:46, you would literally write 11:46 on the glass right next to the song. And the reason for that was it was the time separations being in play that you would set up on a computer, but back in the manual day, you had to write on the glass. Just later on in life, when you get to be a PD, remember writing on the glass. Writing on the glass right in front of you. Yeah, I just want you to remember that. When you're writing on the glass, the next jock who comes in after you knows that he has to go through the ones that have no writing on them first before he comes around and erases the whole thing and then has a blank slate to play whatever they want. Because if you came in and say in the last, and he only had to worry about the last hour, but say, the last hour you played 8 songs, he or she would have to avoid those 8 songs absolutely before an hour went by, at which point he could erase them. That's how manually song separation times for currents was taken care of. Again, you got to do the same thing on a computer. Whew, that's a lot there. Should we move into the currents now?
Moving into how currents were played, you have to keep track of the tempo. You'd have to, there were rules for the tempo and other rules that went along with playing the music. But the way the current music was played, it was under a sheet of glass, a typed page that looked much like this, virtually identical to this. These are today's current music as opposed to, back then in 1970. But they were divided roughly like this. There was an A section, a B section, a C section. And they were 10, 10, and 10. You wouldn't see this configuration now. You'd see something like maybe the A's are like 5. Maybe they'd be 7. Could actually be 3. And the B's might be 7 or 9. C's might be, 6. Well, it could be anything depending on the station. If it's a top 40 station or if it's an AC station, they'd have different configurations. But essentially, you would see A, B, C. And then that last one, which might have 3 songs today, might have 2 songs, might have 5, 6. Probably wouldn't have a lot of songs, would be the new ads. Those are the brand new songs that just came out. And the way these would be played at the time would be you would play 1A every quarter hour. Remember the quarter hours, 1, 2, 3, 4 that I was showing you? The way a typical hour is divided into 15-minute segments. In a current slot, didn't matter which one, you would play 1A. In the other slots, you would start playing the B's and C's and basically do a B, then do a C, then do a B, then do a C, and you would do that to fill up the other current slots, except one current slot per hour would get one of those new songs. Now, let me show you the tempo rules. There's a lot of rules for music and different things. I already showed you a ton of the gold rules, how they needed to be played. But along with that, you had to keep track of the tempo. Again, this is something you're going to need to do on the computer when you're programming. And the way it was there would be one super up-tempo song each quarter hour. At the start of each of those quarter hours that you saw, 1, 2, 3, 4, remember those things? That first song would have to be a super up-tempo song. A plain up-tempo song wouldn't get it, and you would never play a slow song. It had to be up-tempo. And the reason for that was that this was a pretty up-tempo radio station, and it was an in-your-face, larger-than-life radio station. And it was set up so that every 15 minutes, the tempo of the radio station would reset itself and bring it back up to a full tilt, smoking gold song or a smoking current song. One way or the other, it was going to be moving. That drummer is sweating when he's doing the song. The other part to kind of hold it up was no 2 slow songs back to back. You do a slow song and you had to immediately come back with either a really fast song or a fast song. You could not do 2 slow songs back to back. The other part of it was that you didn't want to be relentless for long periods of time, so you couldn't do 3 super up-tempo songs back to back, those songs that would come out of, that would start each quarter hour. Because one, it would sound weird, that the station would be too up and give you no rest at all from the sound. And also, if that was the case, you'd probably chew up all the up-tempo songs and then you couldn't maintain rule number 1, which was a super up-tempo song at each quarter hour. And what I mean by that is, this is what it looked like. Those songs needed to be super up-tempo. Remember back when I said, hey, take a look at this when I was showing you the 4 gold slots? I'm going to ask you a question about that, and I want you to think about it for a second. Take a look at this and ask yourself this question, see if you can come up with the answer. Now, you can see at 15, there's a gold song and it's super up-tempo. And then at the start of the 30 at the bottom, there's a current song. And then, at 45, there's a gold song, super up-tempo. And then going into the top of the hour, there's a gold song. But the top of the hour is a current song that's super up-tempo. Why do you think? Because it would sound really cool, and it does sound fantastic, and you'd hear this in many times of the day, particularly in midday when the golden currents are moving around. Why would not the IDs at the top and the bottom of the hour, why would they not be gold? Take a look and stare at that clock for a second and see if you can see the logic for it. There's a gold song, super up-tempo, at the quarter hour, at the first quarter hour. There's one gold at the second quarter hour. Why would you not put a super up-tempo gold at the top and the bottom of the hour? It'd sound fantastic. The reason would be, if you look at this and remember the gold songs, there's slow songs, there's fast songs, and there's super fast songs. This is calling for super fast songs. If they were all in the quarters, you would never play anything but super fast songs. There would never be a slow gold song played, ever, nor there would ever be a fast gold song played, in these day parts where this clock was running. Minor little things that you got to kind of keep track of in your head as you're laying out clocks, the ramifications of what you're doing, and things you need to keep track of.
Woo, long lesson, way longer than I wanted it to be. Again, I really wanted to do short lessons, but if I'm finding as I'm doing this, it's hard to do short lessons, at least in this section anyway, because there's so much to kind of explain, and you sort of can't stop in the middle of it. Coming up next, we're going to go into the rules that went along with a lot of things that went along with the jingles, went along with how the commercials were played, went along with the music itself, because I only skimmed the music here. There's a lot more stuff that was going on with the music. I'll go through those rules. That'll be on the next lesson that's upcoming. Hope you're getting something out of this, and hopefully it will help your career big time. All right? So until the next one, see ya!
This person's phone is switched off. Please try later or send a text.